Hello, everyone.
Hey,
Welcome to Knowledge or Nonsense. How you doing, Lorraine
I'm
Perkins?
doing well. Sharon Combs, since he's using that government.
We
I'm
do
doing well,
full
Sharon
names,
Combs.
full government names,
How
right?
are
What's your
you?
social? Okay, I'm well. I'm well. I'm in Texas, enjoying this weather that is, it just changed when it want to change. The
Yeah,
weather
long
is
as
free. It believes in freedom.
indeed it
So,
is.
hey, so without further ado, I am excited about tonight. We're going to talk about different things. We're going to talk a little bit about COVID fog. Can there be trauma? What are some of the symptoms of trauma? What does trauma really look like? And just because it's a lot going on, it's so much. And along those lines, in the news,
Oh
what's
goodness,
going on? War?
this listen,
War in
wars,
2022? Like foot war in 2022? Is this
Sharon.
real?
It's real. Wars and rumors of wars and just so many traumatic signs that things are changing yet again. You know,
Yet
we
again.
yet again we sort of got unfortunately we got used to dealing with certain factors of this pandemic, right? We got used to wearing masks. You agree or disagree? You knew you get on that airplane, you're gonna put a mask on. It
Yeah.
became part of our norm. It's changing yet again. So it's yeah, it's interesting. I'm excited about tonight's show. We have a specialist in our midst who can help us drill down and define some of these categories that we just don't know how to deal, how to explain. We know we're living it, but how to explain it, how to identify it.
Yeah, I do have questions.
Mm-hmm.
And we've had some questions that have come in, so I'm excited about not even just the questions, just that there's going to, hey Veronica, hey Danny, good to see you guys. Guys, please share this video. This video is going to be so helpful, not just for us, but also for leaders who are in healthcare. Like I said, we've been in an extended pandemic, as Lorraine just said. Now we're talking about wars and just
On top of everything,
on
on top
top of
of
everything
right.
else. It's like it's too much. And so we really want to talk about what that looks like and some tools, some basic tools to, maybe navigate some of these things. And so yeah, you guys, you know what to do. Share the video and bring your comments, because as we go through this, I believe there will be some things that are said that may resonate with you, or that may bring put you in remembrance or bring to mind something in your immediate circle. And again, this is going to be helpful not just for us, but for our leadership, for those in our sphere of influence, because we want to live full lives.
Yeah.
We don't have to be stressed out at age 40 and checking out at 42.
Yeah, and what I do appreciate, got to remind everyone, we're still in the midst of Black History Month. You know,
Black History Month.
sharing the type, the level, the of guests you had on the show that you were able to partner with and invite on Knowledge and Nonsense. Kudos to you. I've been hearing so much from my colleagues in healthcare, my neighbors. Lots of folks are watching because we're not just talking about our careers. We're as unpredictable as the weather, right? As unpredictable as the weather.
Yeah, thank you so much. One of the things with Knowledge and Nonsense, visibility is important. If I can see me, I can be me. And we are in so many areas that, even with this being Black History Month, there's staples: Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, Madam C.J. Walker. Like, there are staples that people throw out there, but there are people who are making history. There are first happening right now in 2022. Issa Rae, first one to get the first Black female to get the Key of the City. And, was it Oakland? In Oakland, like, what? At the Sophie, yeah, like, how can you be the first Black there? That's predominantly Black area, but yeah, no, there are firsts that are happening right here, right now. And so Black history isn't just then; it's also right now. Like Sharon Green Golden said, I'm Black history. Dr. Alana is Black history. You're Black history. So
Black
I'm not
history.
just going to keep on talking. We've been on
right.
for 5 minutes. Okay. I know she's ready to get in here. And we are going to talk about it. Don't get nervous. Don't let the word trauma cause you to check out or have a preconceived notion. Please be open. Please share this video. And please, y'all, let's all grow. We doing this thing.
Let's talk. Let's dialogue. Let's exchange.
Yeah. All right. So we'll be right back in about 20 seconds. That's enough time for y'all to share the video. And when we come back, Dr. Alana will be with us.
Let's go.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Knowledge or Nonsense. Today, we're just talking about it's too much, but it's not really too much, but it seemed like it's so much. The prolonged pandemic. We're talking about war now. We can't get supplies to stove chain. It's just a lot going on. And so tonight we have with us Dr. Alana Curry. She's a psychiatrist based out of Houston, Texas. She's been practicing for over 12 years, worked with veterans for quite a while with PTSD. So she has a very insightful and hands-on and medical understanding of trauma, of the realities of trauma. And so we're excited to see you on tonight. And yeah, welcome, Dr. Alana. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here again.
Yes. Listen, man, can we just jump right in? Can we jump right in? Before we even define the word trauma, can we just jump right in? Because when I had COVID, I actually end up talking to you. I was like, hey, listen, I can't seem to get my mind right. You know, other people are like, I can't breathe. I'm extra tired. I'm like, I'm forgetting basic stuff. I feel like I literally am in a fog. And I'd gone through several losses, you know, people dying in the family. And you really just began to break down to me the brain science behind like, hey, quit playing. This is what trauma looks like. So is it possible that this pandemic could have people in trauma in ways that aren't like just bombshells dropping on you?
Absolutely. It's a fact now that we can officially go ahead and accept this fact. Okay. This is my earth size stress ball, by the way. Every human being on earth has trauma. Every human being on earth has experienced trauma, is experiencing trauma, experienced it multiple times throughout their life, and gonna experience some more again many times. So I think that the important thing is to get people to understand what trauma is and what it's not, because so many times we have the idea that trauma has to be, you have to be physically violated, you have to have bombs dropping on your country, God help us, you have to have something just so extreme happen to you, but that's not the only thing that causes trauma. And so unfortunately we have widespread misconceptions about what trauma is, which is also why we have so much shame and stigma about something that is extremely common that every person goes through.
You know, in preparation for this conversation, I wanted to do some homework, right? And I said, what do the professionals, the APA, the American Psychological Association, say about trauma? And their definition is, and I read, trauma is an emotional response to a terrible event. Trauma is an emotional response to a terrible event. And I also learned that trauma is subjective, right? Because you just gave a good example. Traumatic experiences won't necessarily just mean bombs are dropping. They can be coming in a multitude of categories. How does one recognize that they've been in a traumatic event or they're in the midst of one?
Yeah. I think actually that is one of the reasons why I developed my own definition for psychological trauma, because unfortunately, medicine and mental health is really far behind the bar when it comes to actually translating what research has told us and implementing it in our everyday approach to care. And so when we step back from what we typically think about trauma, my definition would be any situation that you experience internally as painful and that changes the way you think about yourself, other people, and the rest of the world. I'll say that one more time. Any situation that you experience internally negative that changes the way you think about yourself, other people, and the rest of the world. And the reason that I use that definition is because trauma, as you noted, is very subjective. You can't set an external bar for something. Two people can have a very similar experience, almost the exact same thing, and their bodies and brains will have different reactions to it. One person can have a car accident. They might be a little shook up for a few hours, a couple days, and then they're back at it, where someone else can have that same car accident. And then they become so nervous that they can't drive. They start going different directions, or they don't want to go back to that intersection. And then it may get to where they think that driving is so dangerous that I don't want to drive anymore, and become shut in their home. So we have to get away from defining trauma externally and begin to recognize that anything, even if the person doesn't recognize that they're experiencing something negative, if they experience it negatively internally, it will change their brain's programming and how they think about the next time they encounter a situation similar to that one.
Interesting.
So with trauma, so even with the car wreck example you just gave, now when I came up, I played sports, and there was this things like, power through, push through. You ain't bleeding, like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
no pain, no gain.
Yeah,
Right.
no pain, no gain. Like, you're not bleeding. And so it was almost as if you couldn't physically see, or if it wasn't visibly evident that something had occurred, then you could be looked upon as like weak, lame. Can I just keep it real here on Knowledge and Nonsense?
Yes, ma'am.
Lame, all extra emotional, and don't be a male. Don't be a male and have to deal with this. There you go. So what is, like, how do we get past that? I'm not saying we babysit something, but trauma is actual, and there's brain science behind it, right?
Absolutely. I think the way that we get past it is, number one, by education. We have to start having some very real, serious conversations about the global mental health crisis that we're currently experiencing. You can't tell me that living in areas that are impoverished, that experience gun violence, we were just talking before we came on about just the trauma that we soak up from being exposed to the thing. COVID, for example. COVID is traumatic. It caused a huge shift in our global society. It caused individual losses. People didn't just lose family members. They lost their sense of safety. They lost their sense of normality. They lost opportunities to graduate and have ceremonies. We all lost a version of life that we thought we were going to have. And even that comes with the grieving process. It was experienced negatively internally, and it changed the way we thought about each other. Political violence, traumatizing. Racism, traumatizing. So the important part about it is that yes, we can power through. I'm not saying don't be resilient. I'm not saying don't cry sometimes. But what I am saying is that because you can't avoid trauma, it's important to understand it. So sticking our head in the sand and saying, oh, no, I don't have that. How's that going to help? That's not helping anybody. And obviously, where we are in this world, people are reacting. Like the people who are they're wondering why we have gun violence, because people don't know how to control their anger. They don't know how to control their sadness, their stress, and then they lash out at each other. And all of that really comes back to human beings are primitive, and we're running on our primitive brain systems. Most of us, really all of us, are actually running on the input of our primitive brain systems. And that's what really changed my understanding of psychological trauma, when I really got to know my brain.
It's so interesting, right? Because there's so many traumatic expressions. For instance, you turn the news on, you can be having a solid day, great day at work, family, health, everything is where it's supposed to be. And then you watch the news, and on the news you see this amount of people who die because of illness, wars in Ukraine. It's somber. How does one protect themselves from adopting, environmental trauma as part of your norm?
Such a good question. And what I would say to that is first, you need to understand how your brain absorbs information. You need to understand we're all like high technology. This is why I tell people like every human being on earth is actually not just a human being. You're a super being. You're a super being, but you're also an animal. Okay. Because I know we have a tendency to think that we're not animals, but we are definitely animals, biological. We're not plants, right? And
We're
we
not.
have this biology that affects our psychology. And that psychology is really about how you think and how your brain interprets information. So all of us are taking in data through our eyes, our ears, our senses. Our brain is making calculations and micro judgments, and then it's sending out invisible sensations and urges and surges and things that we experience as feelings. And that is a constant process that never stops. And study after study has shown that human beings, on average, use about 10 to 15% of their prefrontal cortex. So your brain is working all the time in different areas, handle different things. But this part of your brain is like your CEO. It's the part of you that can do long term thinking, that can think about, okay, I have a short term goal. I'm trying to get to the store. This person cuts me off, and now I'm mad and I'm swerving behind them, maybe shooting at them. That your primitive brain has hijacked your decision making, and now you are engaged in that behavior, right? So your prefrontal cortex is very quiet, and the primitive brain is very loud. And everyone is operating with their primitive brain dominating their internal experience. But because we don't talk about emotions, because we don't share things with anybody other than maybe our psychiatrist, our therapist, if if we even get that far, there's so much misconception about what is a normal internal experience. So us not understanding, oh, we have these parts of our brain that are dominating how we feel and how we think, means that those part of the brain are driving the bus without us knowing it. So that should explain 99% of the shenanigans that you see going on right now in the world, because we do not know how to slow down, control our emotions, process with our primitive, what our primitive brain is presenting to us in our body, and then make decisions with that prefrontal cortex that allows us to be able to go, oh, wait a minute, that probably should not be the thing that I should do. But this part of your brain only fully matures at 25 years old. So think about all of the decisions that we make and all of the behaviors that we engage in before we're 25 years old. So a lot of what we're
Wow.
dealing with is that our society is not designed with knowledge of how the human body and brain actually works. It's still very primitive. So we have primitive interpretations of each other.
Wow.
Wow. That's so it's like primitive to primitive. And by the time everyone can actually listen to the quieter part, that is the actual CEO, that does understand the operations and can make a more rational decision, that now we're in cleanup mode
It's,
or we're in hindsight mode.
it's,
Yeah.
it's,
Dwayne, you have
Why
something
did
you
I
want
do
to
that?
say?
it's just amazing because as Dr. Alana was speaking, it's like some of us are responding to a response, right? So it's not a primary approach. We're responding, which is secondary to another response. It almost become a chain effect. Uh, and when you explain about the age and how our brain is not maturing in that region to 25, we have to now reflect. Imagine if we had that control that we have now, and then what decisions would you have made differently?
Mm-hmm.
But it also brings in another set of empathy when you see, young folks make some of the decisions they make, and
Mm-hmm.
this is so
Mm-hmm.
interesting.
Hey,
Mm-hmm.
listen, we're going to take a quick commercial break. I definitely want to say kudos to our sponsor. Our sponsor, CS Assist, is one of our sponsors. Thank you so much, LaWayne, for sponsoring, not just with sponsorship, but also showing up week in and week out here. I definitely want to say kudos to SIPS Consults, who's also a sponsor. Both
Sips.
of these companies are working in healthcare. When we come back, I want us to get, before we get a little further into the brain science, I want us to get into what it looks like when it may be trauma. Like you said, like with job loss and different things that can create trauma that are not physical impacts.
Hey
Even
Sharon,
though they have a physical, go ahead, Lorraine.
can we
Go
also
ahead.
talk about why the term? Because real men don't cry, right? I want to hear Dr.
Well,
Alana's, and you got to explain what that is. Real men don't cry, right? I want to dig into that statement a little bit when we come back.
all right, we'll be back in about 1 minute, guys. Go ahead and share this video. I see the comments there. Listen, this is going to be so helpful. And because you have this information, you'll be able to help me. We'll be able to help you. We'll be able to help our coworkers. We'll be able to come a little more from this prefrontal cortex and not just be at the mercy of a primitive mind. Dr. Alana, I'm so glad you're here. We'll be back in about 60 seconds.
Those in the know SIPS Consults. SIPS Consults is hiring. Confident, competent, and consistent. Starting as a consultant and a volunteer, SIPS has grown into a dynamic group of stellar sterile processing professionals, offering excellent benefits, 401k, and consultant in training program. We are hiring certified technicians, leads, supervisors, interim managers, educators, coordinators. Apply at recruiting@sipsconsults.com or dial 1-866-615-7977.
Welcome back to Knowledge or Nonsense. You are watching us. We're speaking with Dr. Alana Curry. She is the first and only trauma psychiatrist in the world, not just in the nation, but in the world. I'm sure you will see more and more come as people really have begun to kind of say, wait a minute, trauma is really, okay, it's real. It's not just veterans. And so, Dr. Alana, I wanted to ask you, can we maybe highlight some causes of trauma that are not as common? Because we're in this pandemic, a lot of people have lost jobs, they've lost people, and sometimes you lost neighbors and people that you didn't think you were as close to, but just the continual loss. What are some ways, what are some causes, and what are some ways that trauma can show up in definitely with healthcare workers? You know,
Well, one thing that I would say is that trauma is so pervasive and ever present that most of the time when people are experiencing it, they don't actually realize that it's happening. And so trauma can be, my brain actually has so many answers to that it overloaded, because let's just think about the healthcare workers who are battling a invisible virus and people who do not believe that that virus is actually real. And so not only do you have something where you can actually see more people than usual who are being sick, and you're less able to intervene for them as you have been previously, sometimes even overwhelmed to the point where it's like combat medicine, where you have to triage the resources that you provide to patients. So it puts you in more of a position of having to feel like you're deciding life and death for someone. And that is traumatizing, especially in America. We've been accustomed to being able to have many resources, and to go from having being able to do so many things to sometimes being able to do very little to save people's lives is traumatic. Seeing someone ill and having to still force yourself to get up and go to work every day and not have time to process your own traumas and losses, and to have the burden of people's expectations of you, all while constantly challenging you on the reality of things. It's exhausting. And medicine is already a pretty traumatic career choice. And I say that because we're with people in their worst times when their body is betraying them. And that's often when people are, we're seeing people through cancers, we're seeing people through diseases and their bodies malfunctioning. So first responders like police officers, EMTs, doctors, nurses, we're constantly actually bombarded by traumatic experiences. But again, because we're taught that this is normal, that this is something we should just suck up, just move forward. And we do, don't get me wrong, we do. But it's also why you see so many high incidents of depression, anxiety, stress, suicidality, and people coping with substances like alcohol or cocaine or even other substances. So there is quite a bit of the way that psychological trauma often manifests is number one, people feel um, fuzzy or foggy, often disconnected. And that can be for a number of reasons. So I'm going to actually run through the six primitive brain systems real quick because I think I have to tell about those to give some context for why I say what I'm going to say about them. The first
Okay.
brain system is the reticular activating system, which is a part of your brain that filters information. So it brings some things into your consciousness and it tunes other things out of your consciousness. So the first point of order is no one experiences an objective reality. Everyone's brain is providing them a subjective interpretation of what is going on outside of them, and it's filtered. So your brain is not only programmed by things you personally experience, but it's also programmed by, it's particularly programmed by painful experiences. So your RAS highlights things that it thinks are traumatic in order to help your body be aware of it. Okay. Your amygdala, which is the second part of your brain you need to know about. It is a teeny tiny part of your brain right here, deep in the center. And that amygdala is typically known for causing fear emotions, right? Fear and fight, flight, freeze response. But the amygdala creates all of your emotions, the whole range of emotions. So what that means is that not it's yes, it's great at showing you the worst possible case fear scenario, but it also is responsible for peace, joy, happiness,
Mm.
calm, all of those things. So every human being, I said that to say every human being has emotions, point blank, period. If you're a functional human being, your brain and body is designed to give you invisible internal signals. It may show up in your belly, it may show up in your tightness in your chest, it may show up in a headache, but it is your amygdala and those deep parts of your brain that are creating those emotional experiences. Third part of your brain you need to know, somatosensory cortex. The SSC is the part of your brain that registers pain. It does not differentiate between physical pain and psychological pain. So, in the same way that somebody can poke or pinch or punch you, people can hurt you with their words. They can say things that fly across space, pow, smack you upside your head, and
Yeah.
you have the same power to say things that have to float across space and be interpreted through their primitive brain systems. And not only can we harm each other with words, but even sometimes the thoughts that we think and how we talk to ourselves. Ooh, Lord, I know we was going to church today. How we talk to ourselves is actually more traumatic and painful and recreates those trauma responses because of the things that we tell ourselves about ourselves and what we've made our traumas mean for us. Hidden that somatosensory cortex. The fourth brain system, brain reward system. That's our addiction system. Everybody has an addiction system. Everybody has dopamine, which is a short term pleasure chemical that comes out when we do things that we enjoy. So, guess what? Every human being on earth has an addiction to something. We are addicted to salt, sugar, money, sex, each other, social media, these screens, the what else? You name it. There's so many things that we have addictions to. The question is not if we have addictions. The question is where do we have habits that we're so accustomed to that we are imbalanced. We spend too much time, energy, money, or what have you on that particular thing chasing dopamine, and it causes imbalances and problems in the rest of our life. Fifth brain system, mirror neurons. This is how we soak up information from our environment. This is how we soak up programming. This is how we soak up labels for what words we use to interpret behavior. An easy example of this is in my family. If somebody cried, they was acting crazy. Okay, acting crazy. And that's the term that you when you see that particular behavior, acting crazy or losing it, right? So if that's how we're taught to think about something, when you see that behavior, you're going to put that label on it, and then that will cause you to have the specific response and thought process and feelings inside about how you've labeled that thing. Last but not least, the sixth brain system is biochemical matrix, which is my term for adrenaline, cortisol, oxytocin, serotonin, all these chemicals that we have in our body that extend and expand our emotions. And that's one of the reasons why so many people have COVID fog, cortisol, stress hormones. When you're stressed, your body's pumping out hormones and chemicals that are designed to kind of fog you out a little bit and calm you down, but they can make your brain feel cloudy. It could be like, wow, I can't remember things. I feel disconnected, almost out of my own body. It can make your blood pressure go up. It can make your weight go up. It's all types of things that happen inside of us because of these chemicals in these bodies. Unfortunately, we have not had a very good education system about them, but that's also because we didn't have MRIs and PET scans and, you know, all the research that we have that helps us now understand how these parts of our brain dictate the experience that we have. So that's what I'll stop there just to give you guys a chance to process that.
I know. I thank you for telling us, because go ahead, Elaine, because I definitely have some questions and I want us to get Cliff's question in there.
Okay. What I wanted to know about trauma is if it can be passed on genetically. If mom and dad or our grandparents had a traumatic experience, can that be passed on genetically to their offspring?
Yes, it can be passed on genetically. They have several studies that have shown that trauma even changes your what they call telomeres, like on the end of your DNA. There are these sequences that we call telomeres, and when you experience stress, you have shortened telomeres. Your body actually responds in real time in ways that can be passed and communicated to your offspring. And this is a really functional component of us being a human animal. Like an example of this could be a baby may not know what a spider is, but they will see the spider and be like, you know, a toddler might recoil back from that spider, not because they know or have had the experience that that spider hurt or bit them, but because they have been taught, they genetically, they have inherited some awareness that this thing is going to give their body a signal like, that don't seem right. Okay. However, the biggest part of our programming is actually the nature part, because you could imagine if the parent runs in the room and goes, no, that's a spider, and snatches this baby away from the spider. It's that the parent has taught that child, hey, if you didn't react to that spider, now you definitely need to. I've reinforced your understanding with this extreme experience that I gave you, that spider is something you should be afraid of. So the good news about that is that even though, yes, we can pass things genetically, our actual ability to transform our own programming and relearn those trauma patterns and recognize them is well within our grasp within one lifetime. We don't have to wait another 400 years to get free from those trauma experiences once you understand how they have been programmed in your body and in your mind.
Wow.
So Cliff asked us, he said, do you think maturity plays a part? And when he asked this question, I think we were talking about like the power through, and Dwayne said, you know, men don't cry, or, you know, get over it. You know what I'm saying? Like, I know when I grew up, it was like, oh, it ain't that bad. Get out, you know, just like, you just like froze in your space. But what can you do except go? And so you learn to deal with trauma by, I learned at that age, like deal with trauma by not dealing with it. So Cliff asked the question, do you think maturity plays a part? And he said that being super honest with yourself is what he believes is key. What do you think about that? Like, you haven't.
Well, when I think of maturity in a couple different ways. So I also am a fan of making sure that we define words so that we're all having the same conversation. Because for all human beings, it's very difficult to get us all on the same page. Let's start with that. Because the way we interpret words can be different, right? So when he said that, I was actually thinking about the reference to the maturity of the brain, right? That our prefrontal cortex does not actually physically mature in terms of being fully available to us until around the age of 25. But when, as you mentioned it, him talking about maturity in terms of what we would call mental or psychological maturity, I would honestly venture to say that what we think of as maturity is actually really a unhelpful thought process, an unhelpful definition, because I have found that most human beings grow in physical age, but their psyche tends to stay, especially when they're emotionally challenged, tends to stay stuck in their developmental age when they experience a lot of trauma. So I tend to see people not just in their biological age, but in their psychological age. And I find that you can have 60-year-olds who are immature psychologically because they've never been taught to cope with their emotions. So they may just crack jokes to keep from having to talk about difficult conversations. That you can be 60, but that's not a mature coping mechanism. So I think I would have to know what he means by maturity in order to really answer that question, because I think for many people, we grow, but it does not, we have not coped. We have actually not learned how to deal with things in a healthy way.
All right, we're gonna.
Hey Sharon, just really quick. I got a text message came in. But Wayne, did you really say real men don't cry? No, that's not what I said. I'll give you an example of a popular term that real men don't cry.
Yeah, and I think that's unfortunate, because the reality is that even this concept of real men, like, first of all, whose bar are we talking about? Why do we use this imaginary bar of what a man is, right? But I have doctors and other physicians that I've actually had to say, hey, we went to all the same classes and read the same books. These tears dropping down your eye do not mean you're weak, do not mean you're damaged, do not mean that you're broken. It's actually healthy to cry. Crying releases all kinds of like oxytocin and helpful stress relieving chemicals, and allows your body to process and release things in a healthy way, so that you're not snappy and snarky, irritable, drinking, smoking, trying to cope with things, which is what many people do when they don't have a healthy way to process their emotions. So from that perspective, we understand that that's how people have been taught to think, but it is completely unrealistic to expect a person to never cry. When there is something bad that has happened or damaging that has happened, your body's natural mechanism is to give you those moments of sadness so that you can process, you can release that. And if you do it and allow yourself to do it, then you can get back up and move on fairly quickly and be healthy about your emotions. But if you don't allow yourself to have your emotions, then you are cut off, you are numb, but you're not having emotions. You're just having them in an unhealthy way.
You hear that, real man? So don't laugh when I cried at the end of Gladiator when my man Russell Crowe didn't succeed. It was there. But
I had a guy one time tell me, he was like, I don't have emotions. And I was like, okay, you have an amygdala. This is one of my veterans. He was a Navy SEAL. He was like just cold blooded, but he's like, I don't have emotions. And I was like, that one would be called anger. Okay. All right. Okay. So one of the most dysfunctional beliefs that we have is that men don't have emotions, but you can look on the news every day and see folks getting angry at each other. Look at our political sphere and environment. Look at our geopolitical situation. People are angry with each other. When they're angry with it, you're making me feel bad on the inside. That gives me permission to dehumanize you, to put a label on you that makes me not have to respect you as a fellow creator. And then I can shoot you, slap you, beat you, fire you, or do whatever other damaging thing that I feel because of what I'm accusing you of causing in me. And that's just truly not how our brain works. No one else can cause your emotions. It's your brain.
All right, we're going to take another commercial, Alauna. I definitely want to just share some things, a commercial from CS Assist. And then, of course, you guys know we're going to do a commercial for Scrub Ball.
Scrub
When we
Ball.
come back, we're going to answer all these questions. The first thing I would like for us to hit, I like how you said you always want to define a word first. And I believe when you say trauma cure serves as a CURE, there are periods in between that. And one of the comments was saying something about cure. So I want us to be able to address that. And if you could let us know what cure means when we come back, so that we have correct understanding. Also, guys, even though Dr. Alana is a psychiatrist, she is an MD. She's worked with veterans over 12 years working with people with stress. Knowledge or Nonsense is an informational show where we're saying, is it knowledge or is it nonsense, how we look at things. So if you are experiencing some of these, please get with your physician. Please, there are phone numbers you can call, COPES, if you're feeling something. Please use those resources. As a matter of fact, I'll have some run across the bottom of the screen in case this wakes something up in you. But when we come back, I definitely want you to go over the trauma cure so we can have understanding of what that means. Sure. And then we're going to go over some of these other comments. You're about to be rapid fire, Dr. Alana.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Okay, we'll be right back in just a second.
Lost time is never found again. CS Assist specializes in providing CS leadership more time to focus on all resources on patient care and safety by assisting with your compliance needs. We understand there are many departmental recommendations and even more regulatory compliance mandates to adhere to and to follow. We focus on the constant changes in staff education and regulatory compliance, allowing you to focus on the daily operational needs. Realizing the value of time, we partner with you to alleviate risk in all areas. CS Assist offers a variety of support packages that includes everything from CSPD-specific policies and procedures to fully customized service readiness plans. For more information regarding retainer options, our qualitative reporting tools, or our online documentation, call CS Assist at 1-833-CSP-ASST. That is 1-833-277-2778. We look forward to speaking with you.
All right, guys, we are back. This is Knowledge and Nonsense with myself, Sharon Combs, my co-host, LaWayne Perkins of CS Assist, and Dr. Alana Curry. Thank you so much for spending time with us. She's a psychiatrist. She is the only trauma psychiatrist in the world. You heard it here. You are Black history. You are history, not just Black history. You are history. You are medical history. Yes, you are. But hey, this is Knowledge or Nonsense. And one of the things we have committed to our audience to do and we're passionate about is actually looking at what's knowledge and what's nonsense. And so one of the comments is actually stated that it's impossible to cure someone of something and you as a person. And I just wanted you to tell us what the cure stands for. When you say trauma cure, because it's not cures in the word, it's cures in each letter stands for something.
That is correct.
Share it with us.
The trauma cure stands for creators using radical empathy. And what that means is that he's right. I do not cure mental illness because that is not my job. My job is to teach people about their brain and teach people about how it is creating their sensations, their thoughts, their emotions, and their actions. And so I actually do not practice clinical medicine. I know anymore. I'm retired because I ran into my own traumas of health problems and all kinds of other things and COVID. And so how I found I could help more people is to be able to explain to them what they can do. And it really starts with the concept of radical empathy, because what empathy is, by my definition of it, is not just emotions, being aware of the emotions and connected to other people's emotions. Empathy is actually doing the mental exercise of putting yourself in the other person's experience and hearing through their ears, seeing the world through their eyes, interpreting things through their experience, and recognizing that their version of reality is just as real to them as your version is to you. And they believe it just as much, if not more, than you believe in yours. all human beings actually operate in a state of what I would call semi-delusion, meaning that we have a fixed false belief that our version of reality and what we are experiencing is the truth, and that everyone else's is not as right as ours. That is a fundamentally erroneous, inaccurate way of thinking about the world. But if you have not been taught how your brain interprets information and creates these invisible belief systems and invisible reactions in us, then you actually will, what you experience, you will treat as if it is an objective shared reality. And of course, we know that it is not. And that's part of the reason why you have people who have such different, so much difference of opinion that they cannot agree on what is actually a shared reality. So the exercise of using radical empathy and understanding all of us as creators, like show me doing nothing. How? It's not even possible, right? All of it, if you're sitting still, you're not talking, you're still breathing, you're still thinking, and your thoughts are creative in your body, your emotions are creative, and your words and your actions are creative. So getting people to understand the way that our primitive brain dominates our thought processes and reactions to each other helps them to take control of their own mental health and create mental wellness within themselves. So no, it is not my job to cure anybody's mental illness. That's the reason that is creators using radical empathy. I'm just going to tell you how to do it, and then you go on and handle your business.
Listen, man, when you were saying that, that is so true, because that's why people get so passionate about what's what, but we all our perspective. I call it zip codes, your zip code. And that's why I really wanted you to come on exactly where you're coming on in this Black History Month, as we talked about those different biases, the anchoring biases, the biases of first, whoever said it first, this is what it is. And then
confirmation bias is our strongest bias.
Come on.
Confirmation bias is stronger than all the rest of our biases. Implicit bias, explicit bias. Confirmation bias is the belief that our version of reality is the top version, and we accept information from sources that we trust, people that we're more likely to believe, or people who are saying something more like what we think that we want to hear, and then we devalue the information that comes from other people, maybe because it comes from a package we don't trust. Maybe they're a woman, maybe they're Black, who knows, but whatever it is, it doesn't matter, even if it's good, firm, solid, backed up, well-researched evidence. If it does not fit your belief system, you are likely to devalue or reject it.
Shoot, that sounds like network news. That explains so much. That explains so much. Hey, Tyrone Jackson, thank you so much for that question. You answered that question led to some other topics. Yeah. That sounds like network news.
It does, because other people will, they're thinking the same thing. Well, if it can be cured, why am I not cured and all that? So yeah, we definitely wanted to break that down, because I know the cure has the periods in it. So I know that it's a play.
And it's meant to be provocative, because I really am saying that the way we're doing things is backwards. This is some shit that should have been taught to us in kindergarten. This is some stuff that if we had grown up in a healthy society that acknowledged that poverty and workplace harassment and losing a job and having a government that deprives people of their, common dignities because of laws that people make based on their own belief systems and so on and so forth. Like, there are so many things that are traumatic. We will run out of paper if we set climate change, right? The Texas snowpocalypse last year, when the entire state damn near lost its power.
Yes,
those are traumas. Those are experiences.
Oh my God. And so I'm sorry, I just felt it though, because even it's winter now and we have another storm coming in. I guarantee you there's some college students and some people who are in apartments. I just interrupted you and you're the expert on the show. I'm sorry, it just hit me so much, Dr. Alana, because there are people right now who are probably sitting up petrified, and their primitive mind is like, what if it happens? What if it happens again? And it's hard for them to focus on other stuff, because it's like, no, you don't understand, because it was traumatic. Oh my, I'm sorry, it hit me, y'all. Y'all saw it right there in real time.
Yeah, that's right.
Hit me.
How long does it take someone? And I know this question may have a different amount of answers, but how long does it take someone to overcome a traumatic experience?
I think it depends on the assistance that they have with it and where their knowledge base is about what that means. I think it's very difficult to put time frames on things because it truly, I've seen people, who lived with being, having childhood traumas, sexually assaulted in their youth, and may not come to treatment until they're 40, 50, 60 years old. That get better relatively quickly. And then I see other people that don't, that continue to struggle with what has happened. So I don't think that we can put, um, I don't think we can estimate it like that. What I will say is that with the proper knowledge of their brain systems, I have worked with people who have gone from being to the point of being hospitalized for suicidal thoughts and impulses and having, multiple diagnoses and being on a lot of medication to being able to come off of medications or at least cut down on their medication significantly over the course of about 3 years or so. So, but started noticing differences and changes within weeks to months of actually, or sometimes even days, like when like, wait a minute, it's not abnormal for me to feel this way because I just went through having COVID and losing multiple family members in a row, 4 or 5 family members. So my brain feeling foggy and me bursting into tears sometimes, that's not me cracking up or being broken or, losing my mind. That's my brain having a predictable response to the overwhelm and the emotions of the things that my body is being challenged with. When I give myself time, when I give myself space to cry, when I give myself an opportunity to process how I feel and actually honor those things in a healthy way, I can recover from them faster than if I'm telling myself, oh, I'm so messed up now. I'm broken forever. What's wrong with my brain? All of that adds extra crap on top of the experience that the person is feeling. And then you're getting shame and guilt and embarrassment and all kinds of other unnecessary emotions that are self-created. So I think that the pace of recovery is really based on the individual and what information it is that they're operating from. And I see Nia's question.
Yeah. Okay. So we're going to definitely let you answer that. When you were saying that, I was like, but what about the people who say, and I know this goes out to different people. So for my individuals, definitely some of my groups on LinkedIn, please hear this and hear this from the heart. What about individuals who are like a G, or they feel like, I got it. You're saying, no, it's okay to feel that way. But in their mind, they still have, oh, it's so heartbreaking. I can't hear the Wayne. Go ahead with the questions because so many people feel like just go through with it. And then they're their own worst enemy. I can't. Wayne, ask the questions. I can't
Yeah,
think.
what's going back. What's interesting is that many folks self-diagnose and don't believe that what they're experiencing is a medical disorder. It's just part of their daily life. As we were talking before the show started, poverty is a traumatic experience. And many folks are become adapted to or an adept to being impoverished. It becomes a norm. How do you break the cycle? We know seeking expert help, understanding the dynamics of the brain. What's another factor to help some of our listeners understand how to treat and help, hopefully break that cycle?
Sure. And I'll answer my sister's question first because she said, what is my opinion on EMDR? I think it's a great therapy. It's a good treatment. It's helpful for many people. Again, I try not to use all or none because there are definitely some people that may not benefit as much from it, but I think it's a very well supported treatment. Cognitive processing therapy and prolonged exposure therapy are also some other methodologies that have been therapies that have been found to be helpful, structured therapies. There's also dialectical behavioral therapy, which is another structured therapy that can be very helpful for people who have experienced psychological trauma. So all of that just to say that I don't think that there's a right approach. It's more of what's right for you. But I do believe that one of the things that is so healing is that once we begin to acknowledge trauma, I think we can remove the stigma from it. We don't have to go, oh, no, that didn't have, that's not, I mean, when you live in an impoverished community, it's traumatic to have outdated textbooks. It's traumatic to hear bullets flying outside of your home so regularly. You may not duck anymore, but that doesn't mean that it has not programmed your brain and has caused you to think differently about your surroundings and about the world and about yourself. There's walking past dead bodies, seeing gun violence and alcoholism and all these other, and people with mental health problems that have not received treatment. There is a lot of psychological pain that happens in those spaces that is completely unacknowledged. So I think that once we begin to operate as a society and individually with more empathy, you begin to see how, yeah, of course, a person might be programmed to not see themselves in a healthy way if they grow up in an environment where the people around them are, maybe doing things that the world would label as criminal. But if that's your role models and the people around you, and that's the way that they're surviving or even keeping the lights on and keeping food on the table, you don't have the same interpretation, again, those subjective labels of things as you would if you grew up and were not exposed to those things. So the point is everyone is a product of their environment. Everyone is a product of some sort of traumatic environment, whether it's sometimes it's the religious communities that are traumatizing people. May work great for a whole bunch of folks, but there's a whole lot of people that experience damage from the messages that they're taught from their cultural belief systems, or the messages that they receive from even the family members closest to them, who think they're just trying to help. Oh, you need to lose some weight, you always eating. Like that can become something damaging for a person to hear over time. Like, oh, I'm fat, I'm worthless, I'm out of control. And then the person believes that. It begins to have a feedback loop that affects the way they think about themselves. And then they might binge eat some more to try to get some dopamine to cope. So I feel better if you're making me feel bad. So all of it really still has that interplay of the invisible things that are part of our everyday mental health life that we've never been taught to actually appreciate.
Wow.
Which goes back, and let me just pop this in, which goes back to those brain systems you talked about. Because if something is traumatic, if somebody came up in a traumatic, whether it was abuse or whether it was just anxiety because you were the first of something to go to your school, but the dopamine, you're still getting a need met. It is really critical to understand how those brain systems work. Like we'd be like, oh, that's dope. No, yeah, think about dopamine. There's a reason people are doing these activities. I'm burning up over here, y'all.
Listen, there's so much to unpackage here. She just explained in short detail phenotype versus genotype. That's a whole topic, right? Wanna Donnie Payne has a question. How can we create healthy and more supportive workplaces during today's uncertainties?
I think that's really why I go back to the concept of empathy, because I think empathy is such a powerfully healing, connecting skill set that people can exercise. It's something that we naturally, biologically all have available to us, but it's trained out of us from childhood. You cry, stop that crying. What's wrong with you? Get up. Ain't nothing wrong with you. I mean, so many messages that we have that block us out to the experience of others. And that actually we are biologically designed to look outside of us, right? I can see my hands, I can see my feet, but it's very hard for me to see myself unless I'm looking at a camera. And that's all new technology, right? So for us to all operate with the understanding at the front of our mind that we need empathy every day. That's why I use the love skill. That's why I created these skills. This is my empathy circle. And I'll tell you what it says. But the love skill or the empathy skill is so important because the L is listen and look with suspended judgment. Like we know you think you know what's going on, but guess what? In this day and age, you don't know what anybody else is going through. They may be smiling, but I guarantee you they're going through a global viral pandemic. They're possibly experiencing the world on the edge of a third world war. We're not okay. The humans are malfunctioning. So be be a little more, have some empathy for what another person may be going through that you cannot see from your very narrow, teeny tiny bit of sliver of what you can see from the outside of them. The O is observe the emotions in yourself and the other person, actually put words to it. Actually, I am angry, I am sad, I am jealous, I'm exhausted, I'm feeling guilty, because understanding what's happening between you and the other person emotionally can help you become aware of that biology, because that biology is going on in them, even though you can't see it. Just like inside of you, sometimes it's like a shook up Coke can. They have the same stuff that they're wrestling inside of them. And that's those emotions that we barely can recognize and damn sure don't know how to control. The V is validate the other person's perspective is different than yours. And that is, you don't have to agree with somebody to be able to say, you know what, I can see why you might think of it that way. Get enough information so that you can make that true. I can see why you are coming from that perspective. And then E, express yourself skillfully. We have a worldwide malfunction in communication. We communicate violently, we communicate thoughtlessly, and we communicate without the very real reality that every single word we say is a powerful packet of something that's flying across space, smack, and gonna hit that other person, and their brain has to interpret it. And how well are we actually getting our message across space? So empathy is the core to me of us rebuilding our own health and really putting our focus on ourselves. And kind of, you have to pull your mind intentionally off of what you think other people are doing and how they're acting, and control the only thing that you actually have the power to control, which is you.
I love it. Alexandra said, "Sure words I know are never spoken." One of the things was showing how suicide is a leading cause of death, not the leading cause, but it's a leading cause of death. It's in the top 10, and it really more among younger people. 35 to 44. Like it's it's staggering. It's staggering, and I really do believe that we can do. Man, if we could just humble ourselves,
Yeah.
and hold tight a few minutes. I always say you don't have to have the last word to have the final say. Just hold tight a few minutes. And language master, I'm a fan of it, but get some new words. Learn how to communicate outside of just the 5 to 17 words that are your faves, maybe since age 21. And
It's
so,
so it's
go
just
ahead.
it's just so much, these sort of lessons in a good world of academia should have been taught during our developmental phases.
Yeah.
This is critical knowledge.
Like
Um,
elbow, amygdala.
Right, right. Yes, connected to the knee bone, amygdala connected to the yes.
Right.
Exactly. I'm
That's
so
Exactly.
right.
glad I
That's
can't
right.
think. Oh, your amygdala is fired up right now. Let's give it time to calm down.
That's right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I do believe that that's actually the direction that we're going in, because what I have found is that people have way more chance of controlling something when they know that's what's going on. We're still operating where we say stuff like emotions come from the heart. I'd be like, I'm not trying to be difficult, but no, like, like they don't come from your gut. They don't come from your heart. They come from your brain. You feel them in those places for sure, because your brain does control and transmit those things. But truly understanding our own biology, that's the reason that the trauma cure is really about understanding the brain biology and behavior of psychological trauma, because it ain't the other person making you happy or the other person making you angry. It ain't the devil that's putting that ice cream in your Instacart and, and making you eat that. That's your dopamine. And so really understanding and being able to break some of those primitive ideas and have a real recognition of how those come out of our own body impulses gives us a much better chance of controlling it.
I love it. I believe Nia says, let us know how to follow up with you. I know you have a program coming up this Saturday because I'm in it. I'm in it. I was so honored to meet you a few years back, but I'm there.
The Trauma Cure. Yes, definitely.
Hey, let me give you a plug before you tell us where it is.
Okay.
I love leadership. I believe this program will help leaders be more effective. I know empathy is a buzzword, but imagine how much more powerful and intentional your empathy can be when you understand brain science and the brain systems. All right, I shall rest.
All right.
Go ahead, Dr. Alana. Let us know.
I absolutely appreciate that, and I appreciate your passion for it because it's true. Really learning empathy as a skill and having a strategy to practice it and remember how to practice it, it activates your prefrontal cortex. It intentionally activates that most powerful, evolved part of your brain. And I don't know about you, but I'd rather be operating with the most evolved part of my brain than the primitive stuff running my bus. So that is the way that people can work with me. I do not work with people individually. I'm retired from clinical practice, but I love to teach. So I am doing live virtual events and coaching programs. My next one is on February 26th. You can go to thetraumacure.com for your tickets. And I want y'all to remember that the recording is available for the VIP package. I had several people get the regular ticket and they're like, I want the recording. That's in the VIP package. So I do hope you all come. I'm going to be giving you tools to remember how to work with your own brain. We're going to do some exercises to help you understand your stinking thinking, but also to recognize how to use the best part of your brain to create the things that you want to create in your life. So I'm just so excited to be able to do this with people. It's going to be all day, 10 to 6 for the full day, but you will leave having a very real roadmap to ways that you can begin to rebuild your ability to control your own emotions, your own thoughts, and what you create in your life.
There you go. Now, look, as they say, where I'm from, enough said.
Enough said, and it's not a better time to do it. Prolonged pandemic, everybody is in their feelings now. And whether whoever is right or wrong, everybody is in feelings now. And if you can navigate feelings, this is the skill set that will help you navigate those feelings and be able to help other people navigate as well. So I'm
7 billion creators on primitive mode does not make for a good time. So I think we need a shift.
Oh, this is an amazing conversation. And Sharon, what's next month? Is next month Women's Appreciation Month?
Next month is Women's Appreciation Month. What I do need for us to do, though, we have to say 2 things, guys, before we go. For the CEUs, we want to be sure. I know we talked about recentering. 2 quick tips. I mean, bullet point them. 2 quick tips to recenter. 2 methods of recentering.
Deep breathing. Pause and take deep, slow breaths. You don't even have to make it fancy. It doesn't matter what you count to. None of that stuff. It's just the act of stopping, pausing, recentering, and recognizing that your brain is shook up and that you have to calm it down to access your prefrontal cortex. Number 2, journal. Write it down. I don't journal every day like would probably help me. But when your mind is spinning and you feel foggy and you feel confused, one of the best things that you can do is take the thoughts out of your head and put them on paper. It helps you organize them. And it also can help you recognize where you may be doing stinking thinking, that primitive thinking, or telling yourself extremes and other ways that are not helpful and creating a higher level of emotional intensity than what you need.
All right. Well, you've heard it there. Thank you so much, Dr. Alana. Of course, I'll be there. I'm a lifelong learner. I'll be there for me and I'll be there for others. You know, I'm always bringing it. I have something coming up the next month. Nothing like what you're doing, but definitely some good stuff. So it's good. And it's good though. It is good. I cannot lie. It's good. It's good. We shifting the trajectory, but we need, and I need that information too, because it helps and it puts you in a better position to be able to help others as well as yourself.
These conversations matter. You know, this matters, and you gave it away. We appreciate your time being here. The energy was real, and again, we look forward to seeing you again. Maybe even at Scrub Ball. Consider workshop Scrub Ball. Let that sink in. Workshop Scrub Ball.
Workshop at the Scrub Ball. Yes, it will be so awesome to see you at the Scrub Ball. But we've gone over a little bit. Thank you so much for your time. Y'all be safe. If y'all have any questions, you know what to do. You can put it in the comment. If you don't want it only to be on those comments, or you just don't want it to be in the comment at all, you can always text directly 214-717-5921. I will get back with you. If I don't have the answer, I will get the answer to you. We love healthcare individuals. We're about our industry. We're about our communities inside the department and outside of the department. And these are tools that people can use. I know you're struggling. Even if you say you ain't, I'm not putting it on you. I'm just saying, listen.
Not alone.
It's a lot going on. Mm-hmm. It's much. And here we like, yay, we looks like we may be coming out of COVID cases going down. And now we got wars going on. And you listen, you all right? Recognize some of these indicators. Let's use some of these tools, not just for you, because you're in leadership and you have influence, so you can help other people as well. Mm-hmm. And I'm gonna see y'all at the Scrub Ball. Quit playing. Buy your tickets.
Absolutely. Scrub Ball 2022. See you there. Hey,
so we'll see you guys later.
Have a good night, and thanks for tuning in.